The little
You
girl
said
was
you'd tell
sitting
me
on the
everything.
curb outside a
I
gas
can't.
station
It's
in rural
complicated.
Tennessee,
Complicated?
and she
I'm
was
done.
not crying, which was somehow worse than if she had been. She was maybe 6 years old, wearing a yellow dress with a small strawberry embroidered on the collar, and she was holding her own hands in her lap the way children do when they have been taught to be brave before they were old enough to need to be. She was looking at the road like she was waiting for something she was not entirely sure was coming. Ray Calloway saw her from the pump. He was the kind of tired that does not come from one bad night but from about 3 years of them stacked on top of each other. Single father, 2 jobs, a mortgage that was one bad month from becoming a serious problem, and a 7-year-old son named Cole at home with Ray's neighbor Mrs. Patterson, who was 71 and generous but could not stay past 8. It was already 6:15. Ray had stopped for gas he had been putting off buying for 2 days, and he had $4 worth of quarters in his cup holder, which was not a metaphor but simply his life. He walked over to the girl anyway. There was never a version of this moment where he did not. He crouched down to her level the way you do with small children, hands open so he looked like what he was, which was harmless. He asked her name. She told him it was Lily. He asked if she was lost, and she thought about it with the seriousness of someone who understood the weight of the word and said yes, she thought so. He asked where her mom was and Lily looked at the road again and said she did not know, that they had stopped, and then Lily had gotten out to look at a dog near the fence, and when she turned around the car was gone. Ray stayed very still for a moment. He had been a father long enough to understand what those words meant and what they cost the child to say them plainly without falling apart. He sat down on the curb next to her. He called 911 first. Gave them the location, description, everything they needed. The dispatcher said an officer would be there within 30 minutes and asked him to stay with the child, which he had already intended to do. He called Mrs. Patterson and asked if she could stay another hour. She said of course, don't be silly, go. He bought Lily a juice and a pack of crackers from inside the gas station with the last of the quarters, which meant he would be running on empty tomorrow and would deal with that tomorrow. He sat back down on the curb and handed them to her. She looked at him with the particular expression children have before they decide whether to trust someone. It is one of the most serious evaluations a person can be subjected to. Then she took the crackers and said thank you the way someone had clearly taught her to say it, with eye contact and a complete sentence, and Ray felt something in his chest tighten in the precise way it did when Cole did things that reminded him that good people were made slowly, quietly, by small repeated moments. They sat on that curb together for 22 minutes. Ray did not push for information or pepper her with questions the way nervous adults sometimes do with frightened children. He pointed out a hawk circling above the tree line and told her its name. He told her a short, silly story about Cole that made her smile once and look away like she was trying not to. He did not tell her everything was going to be fine because he was a man who had learned not to promise things he could not personally guarantee. What he did instead was make sure she was never alone on that curb for a single second of those 22 minutes. The patrol car arrived, and then something else arrived too, from the other direction, moving fast. A black SUV with tinted windows. That came to a hard stop half on the shoulder, and before the engine was fully off the door opened and a woman came out running. She was tall, dressed in the kind of simple clothes that cost more than they appeared to, and her face was a disaster of fear and relief doing battle with each other at the same time. She dropped to her knees on the asphalt in front of Lily without any apparent concern for what it would do to her clothing and pulled the girl into her arms and held her with both hands pressed against the back of Lily's head the way a mother holds a child she thought she had lost. The officer got the basic facts. The SUV had been driving, Lily had climbed out at a rest stop during a moment of adult distraction, the car had pulled forward before anyone registered she was gone. It was a 30-second mistake that had unraveled into 90 minutes of terror. When the woman finally stood and turned to Ray, her eyes were red and her composure was the kind that gets rebuilt brick by brick in real time while you watch. She thanked him. He said he was glad she was safe. He meant Lily, and the woman understood that, and something in her face changed slightly at the recognition that he had said she instead of it. She asked his name. He told her. She told him hers was Catherine Marsh, and he nodded and it meant nothing to him, which was not stupidity but simply the result of a man who had not had time to read a newspaper in several years. Catherine Marsh was, Had he known, the founder and majority owner of a logistics technology company valued at somewhere north of $6 billion, and she had been profiled in 3 national magazines in the past 18 months, and none of that was relevant on a Tennessee roadside at 6:40 in the evening. What was relevant was what she said next. She said she needed to tell him something. Her voice was controlled in the practiced way of someone accustomed to delivering information in high-stakes situations. She said that Lily was not simply her daughter. She said that 3 months ago, an individual had sent credible communications threatening Lily specifically, by name, in relation to a business dispute that had become something much darker. She said they had been traveling with a security detail that had somehow been separated in the confusion. She said the reason she was telling him this was that by sitting on that curb in plain sight with Lily for 22 minutes, Ray had almost certainly been visible to people who may have been looking. Ray was quiet for a moment. He looked at Lily, who was leaning against her mother's side eating the last of the crackers, watching the hawk that was still circling. He said he understood. He asked if they were safe now. Catherine said yes, the detail had arrived 2 minutes behind her. Ray looked at the second black vehicle that had pulled in and the 3 professionals climbing out of it, and he nodded once. He picked up the empty juice bottle from the curb and threw it away because it was there and it bothered him. Catherine called him a week later. He almost did not answer because he did not recognize the number. She asked if she could do something for him and he said that was not necessary. She said she understood that, and she was asking anyway. He was quiet long enough that she said his name as a question. He told her about Cole. About the mortgage. About Mrs. Patterson, who was 71 and should not have to be anyone's emergency plan. He said it not as a request but the way a person talks when someone asks a direct question and they are too tired to deflect. 3 weeks later, an education trust was established in Cole's name. Ray never touched a dollar of it himself. He said it was not his money to touch. What he kept, and what he did not tell anyone about for a long time, was a drawing Lily had made and mailed to him. A hawk above a tree line, in crayon, with 2 figures on a curb below it, one tall and one small, both of them looking up. He put it on the refrigerator next to Cole's drawings. It fit there perfectly.